Hello everybody, my name is Aylin Hernandez and this is my guided walkthrough of Lab 4 archiving and transferring files that we did on the Red Hat lab environment. So the outcomes for this lab, they had at least four. It was to synchronize a remote directory to a local directory, create an archive of the contents of a synchronized directory, securely copy an archive to a remote host, and to extract an archive. Now, what do these mean? Well, synchronizing a remote directory to a local directory basically means to make sure that the content from one folder matches the content of another folder. You want to make sure to synchronize is to make sure that they have the same content, that the content matches. So that's all we're doing there. Creating an archive of the contents of a synchronized directory is just putting all of the contents that we've synchronized together into one file to make it easier to transfer and handle between systems. We want to securely copy an archive to a remote host. So that's just transferring between computers, transferring the archive content and ensuring that it's secure and private during the transfer. And then once it's finally arrived at its destination, we can extract the archive, which is just to say to unpack the bundled content and set it up for the new computer to use. So we're going to go step by step from the lab 4 and go through their tips. Number one was on server B, synchronize the slash etc. at this directory tree from server A to the slash config sync directory. Now, what does this mean? So we're gonna break it down. So on server B is just to refer to the computer that we will be working on for this lab. To synchronize, as we previously discussed, is to ensure the contents of one directory match the other one. The directory tree that it's referring to is the tree that will be compared to the source directory. So that is to say, it is the one that it's getting its contents compared to. The server A is the location we'll be copying the content from, and the slash config sync directory is where the copied content that we extract will go. So going into this number one step is 1.1, where it is log into server B as a student user and switch to the root user. So when you wanted to, in order to switch users in computers in Bash, we will use SSH. What is SSH? So if you want to see, if you look here, student at workstation, SSH at student at server B, let's break this down. SSH is a bash command. It is used to connect to a computer over a network securely. So that is just to say, once we use SSH, we will be going to the address referred to after the @ symbol. Student at server B, the destination computer for SSH to establish its connection to, as I said. This right here, student at server B, sudo -i. Sudo is another command allowing permitted users to run as an administrator with administrative commands. -i means interactive shell mode, and it is, as you can see here, a request for a full login to run your administrative privileges. To create the slash config sync directory to store the synchronized files from server A, we are going to use the command mkdir slash config sync, as you can see here. And let's break this part down as well. So root at server B, we are currently logged in as the root user with full admin privileges after we logged in, and we are working at server B. And mkdir is the command used to create new directories in the file system. So if a file doesn't exist under the name config sync, then mkdir creates it, and that is just the name and location of the directory or folder that is being created. So as we continue on with step number 1, we went to 1.3 to synchronize the /et directory tree from server A to the /config sync directory on server B. So rsync, let's go over this right here. Rsync, this line of code right here. Root at server B, rsync -av root at server A ect config sync. So rsync is a command, and we're using it to sync files between two locations. That is right here. -av is actually two parts, A and V. A is archive mode, means this is acting to retain the metadata when copies of directories are made. V is for verbose, which means to display the syncing, which you see right here. Root at server A :/etc/ / etc. specifies the source of the sync. So this would be, in this example, be root. Etc. is the directory being synchronized from server A, and config sync is the directory being synchronized to on server B, as we previously mentioned. Going on to step 2, we're creating a config file -backup.servera.tar.gz archive with the /config sync directory contents. Now, what does that even mean? Well, we're going to break it down a little bit and say create a gzip compressed archive. So if you can see here, root at server B, this tar-ccv config file backup_servera.tar.gz/config sync. What does this all mean? Well, tar is a command used for creating and manipulating archive files. This is very important because we use this command to re-establish archived files and compressed files. CSV is a three-parter as well. C is create, to create a new archive. Z is for gzip, which is to compress it. F is for file, is to specify the name, which is the following input, which is right here, config backup server.tar.gz, which follows F, which is the name of the file. And then config sync is the directory that we are archiving. So this is just to say, create a new archive file, name it this, and put it in this directory. Considering number 2, we're going to list the contents of the file that we just created. So tar, as we just mentioned here, is used for creating and manipulating files. So now we're using tzf instead of czf. tzf, T is for list, which is to list all the contents of the archive as it asks for you to do here, and that there it is displayed. So moving on to step number 3, securely copy the root, config, file, etc. archive file from server B to the home student directory on workstation. So we're going to break down root at server B, sftp student at workstation. Sftp is a command used for secure file transfer between computers over an encrypted connection, which is just to say it makes sure that the files shared between computers are extra secure because they are encrypted. Student at workstation is the host to be connected to when you call the sftp command. This section right here, sftp put file, is just to say upload file from local machine to remote machine on specified file. It's a whole lot. Sftp by is the command used to exit the STFP session. To kind of expand more on the put command, it is just uploading files. Moving on to number 4 is on workstation, extract the contents to the /temp/saved config /directory. And for that, we will return to the workstation system as a student user, and in order to do that, we need to use the exit command. And as we can see here, the exit command returns you to your previous shell session. Once we get out of that, we want to create a new directory, and we're going to use mkdir once again, and we are going to make it, we're going to name it tmp/saved configuration in order to store the extracted contents of the previous directory that we were just discussing. We're going to break this down. Student at workstation cd/tmp/saved config. Cd is another command, and it's used to navigate between directories and file systems. So that's just to say, go to this file and navigate to this path. Save config, once it's navigated to, you can see that is the directory we are now currently working on. Moving right along, we're going to list the contents of the archive that we have now transferred. Okay. So we're going to use tar tzf again because, as we said, T is list, and we're listing them out right here. And in order to extract the contents, we are now going to use xzv, and xzv is extract, which is extraction. And so we've used czv, tzv, xzv, which is create, list, extract. Now, finally, we're going to list the directory to make sure that it contained the files that we extracted correctly. ls is a command used to list files and folders, so we're just calling it to list. The long format which is to say to provide as much info as you can about the contents of the file. So that's just to say, bring up this file and tell me all about it, confirm that it's there. It's there, so we use cd to return to our previous shell, and we are done. And now we have successfully, well, let's review. What have we done? Well, in this lab, we have successfully logged into server B and created the directory /config sync. That is to store the files that we want to synchronize. Once we use the rsync command, we sync the contents from the ect directory from server A to the established config directory on server B. After we synced the contents of those directories, we created the archive named config file backup.server.tar.gz, which contained the contents that were synced on server B using the tar command. After that, we transferred the archive from server B to the student workstation using the sftp command, just to ensure its security. And then once that was completed, upon receiving the archive on the given workstation, we extracted its contents to establish it on the new machine. And we put it under the directory /temp/slave config. Thank you so much for following along. I hope you guys have a great summer.